Sometimes programming is beautiful. I wrote this program in high school on a weekend purely by accident. I thought to myself, why don't I try to program a simulation of gravity? Sounds pretty fun. We'll make every particle towards every other particle and see what happens. Surely they'll probably just all collapse on a single point. Seems like that would be the most logical thing for them to do. So I tried that, and to my surprise, they began to form little chains. Clearly it was a programming error, but I decided not to fix it. I didn't really know how it worked, and I thought it would be interesting to just keep looking at it, keep experimenting with the chains. What did they encode? Originally, the program just constantly created additional little particles that I thought would have been getting sucked into what I expected would have been a single center point of mass. After the chains were forming, I began to wonder if perhaps they formed in a pattern that corresponded to the time at which the particles were created. So, for my experiment, I changed the code that generated particles over time to generate them at a color gradient. I figured if it were true that the chains that were created were correspondent to when the particles were created, then by changing the color of the particles at a notable gradient over time, it would result in a gradient pattern along the chain that corresponded to the time at which the particles were made. To my surprise, the chain had this very potential, and that's what we see here. So then I began to experiment with, could I interact with what I had created? What would actually happen if I made a function that when I clicked, it would separate all the particles and just push them away from my mouse? Sure enough, they retain and encode a sense of order about what chain they should have formed, and even if I try to destroy the chain so that the particles are just all jumbled together, they separate back into their original chain structure. Totally unintended. Sometimes programming is beautiful, and maybe you don't really know why until you try it. But I really think it can be a lot of fun. Other times I use this as an analogy for understanding how I think the human brain might have arisen over time through accidents, because you can create something really amazing and beautiful totally by accident as a result of a few simple rules. So I think it's entirely possible that complexity and something amazing could arise out of a simple set of rules, and I don't think that makes it less amazing, right? I really don't. Some days, you just gotta push around the particles, make a little particle cloud, and see what happens. I've totally forgotten pretty much how exactly this code is written. Well, maybe that's not true. I remember a bit of it, but still having this application that I can run from time to time, it reminds me of things in life that are just really pretty awesome about programming. Maybe about life in general. Sometimes there are simple things that are really cool. Truly amazing, despite their relative simplicity. There goes a little orange trail right there. Did I design that trail? There's a question for you. Never when I was writing this program did I picture that orange little trail right there. But it keeps moving, and it keeps going, following its path. But it knows. We could try to zoom in and follow him, but he might get away. This supposed simulation of gravity has the interesting quality that even if I use a suction function, and I bring it all to a single point, deliberately by force, like I thought would have happened from my original code, the reality is that within that point, it still remembers its sense of order, its sense of the chains that it had formed. And over time, it starts to separate back out, formulating new chains, remembering what it is, and rebuilding back to how it had been. If I expand it out, we see that really, the majority of the complexity that arose is all still there. It was just shrunken to a smaller point. If you were to read the code of this program, there's nothing about chains. There's nothing about color gradients existing within the chain. There's just a series of dots created over time. And a function that says, when you're processing what to do, make the dots move closer together. But somehow, as time goes on, and the dots condense out of their empty space and their original existence, they always give rise back to the chains. The orderly and interesting chains. And when you get enough dots in the chain, even though sometimes it starts as a thing of chaos, more and more dots formulate in that chain. Eventually it'll come to life, with constant motion like the others. Eventually it'll be like this larger chain here. It's reaching over towards us. Sometimes you'll have two separate chains form. Often they end up combining, connecting together. I haven't used any mouse interaction on this one here yet, so I don't know what it's going to do or what it's going to become. But it did it all on its own. There you can see it looks like it ended up being accumulated into that other chain, little by little. But it had started on its own chain. It's got a slightly different gradient. It's younger, it has, seems like shorter patterns with gradients. Sometimes maybe you can see bits of it moving around now in the large structure, where the patterns repeat more frequently over a shorter distance. Why that happens is anyone's guess. Sometimes I think it pays to just make things, even if you don't know why. Just have a bit of fun. Get yourself a way that you can invent something and have it appear on your screen. Maybe even if it's the first thing that comes to your mind. And the next thing you know, you'll have something like this. And you might not even know what it is. So I hope you take that with you in life. Make the best everything. And have a good one. For those interested, the music in this video is not my own creation, and it's one of the first results that shows up on YouTube if you type in relaxing piano music. It appears that it was written by this guy right here named Peter B. Helland. So, if you'd like to get access to that music or hear the rest of it, you should go get the full content on the actual video of that, where you just search relaxing piano music. Alright. Thanks, guys. Remember to be creative.